Well, we're starting to get some what I would call hot takes from the leftist community, and some of it is coming from a good place, some of it is right, but man, I can already go on about how a lot of this is like coming from a very alarmist perspective. It's also coming from a place that I don't necessarily agree with. I think that um, to blanket out, like call out the people who voted for Trump as being racist is just automatically putting you on the defensive again. Because that's kind of not fair. Because a lot of people in this country voted based on their economic conditions and what would benefit them, which, if you're going to blame people for that, I honestly don't know what to tell you as far as like engaging with the electorate, because you're lucky if you can change, one person's mind, like, to be completely honest. But if you're in a position like with a YouTube channel where you're able to talk to, many people, especially if you're a larger YouTuber who, has an audience of, you know, uh, even over 1,000 people, you kind of find like it falls on you to, number one, stand by your convictions, because there's nothing that kind of that personally pisses me off more than when I'm trying to engage with somebody and they turn their comments off and you're like, wait, what? And it's not even like coming from a trolling perspective, or like I'm not even being combative. I'm asking questions kind of thing. And this isn't just for me. It's not like I got banned from the chat or anything. Like they just turned their comments off. But there's a content creator on YouTube. Her name is Ole. Her channel is OLURINATTI. She is I think she's a Bohemian. Is that how you say it? Bahamian? Bohemian, I think. But she's from the Bahamas. um, and honestly, she does a lot of great work. She does a lot of advocacy work for people in the criminal justice system that really don't belong there. She also is like a big advocate of criminal justice reform. She also had a viral moment with Eric Adams and calling him out before his takedown. So she is definitely somebody that I respect in this whole space, and really I appreciate her thoughts and her commentary on these situations, but every once in a while she does get it just completely wrong, and it's very hard to even engage with like her supporters or her, especially when that's why I was saying she turns off her comments, because at that point you're kind of admitting that your take sucks if you're that willing to not engage with people over it. And then also, I think that she jumps to racism too quickly to just be like, oh, you're just a racist or a sexist to disagree with this position. And I don't want to be that way where it's like, this is why Trump won. But yeah, these are situations where it's kind of like, you do know that talking to people like that really is just kind of counterproductive. Also, I think that for people that love to use the term bad faith and like to call people out for coming at them in bad faith, they kind of do the same thing. So real quick, I wanted to take a look at her video because she just released a video called Donald Trump Won and America Will Regret It. And as you know what, right away, I was just like, okay, yeah, cool. I looked at it and immediately agreed for a second, but then I thought about it for another second where I was like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? So I kind of looked at her description and I was like, oh, okay. I don't see literally anything like there's, so, I was like, where are we going with this? So I figured, why not take a look with you guys.
Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election. And I know that many people will want me to solely blame Kamala Harris's campaign strategy or the Democrats as a party. But frankly, you cannot convince me that a nation of people who cannot be convinced not to vote for a white supremacist, promising to destroy their rights, every marginalized community, and their entire democracy is without blame that they are not responsible for their choices and the consequences that will follow. I want to make this brief because, frankly, it's clear to me that I have been wasting my breath trying to warn Americans of the dangers of a Trump administration because Trump himself told them what those dangers were. He didn't run on policy. He didn't promise to build anything. Instead, he promised to tear this nation apart, to break things down. He openly promised us police violence, total police immunity, not only the deportation and abuse of undocumented immigrants.
Yeah, but the thing is, this was also like being broadcast everywhere. This isn't something that you necessarily needed to bring attention to, and you didn't need to really chastise people for not seeing it. You guys spent a lot of time chastising people for even thinking about, voting for the Democratic Party, like, and Joe Biden at the beginning of this. And then once Kamala Harris came in, it became a referendum on the Democrats, like way more than it ever became a referendum on the Republicans and Trump. Like, just look at the way that they handled the protesting situation with Kamala over Trump. Like, and I was saying this before where it's like, no, you guys are actually cowards for not going and protesting Trump because he has just as much of a chance to win. And you guys are you guys are protesting the easier opponent. You guys are, that they're not going to fight with you. So it always came off as super disingenuous to me where I'm like, well, if you actually really gave a shit about this as much as you say you do, you would be at both sides. But
to reverse naturalization for immigrants who became U.S. citizens already. He promised to ban abortion nationwide, to dismantle the EPA, the Department of Education. He promised to ban our history, to ban books, to keep the American public even dumber than apparently more than 64 million Americans already are, because the majority of this country's voters voted for him. Understand this. Donald Trump did not just win the Electoral College. He won the popular vote. And I would argue he won it by a landslide. For years, I have listened to Americans insist that Hillary Clinton is to blame for losing the 2016 election to Donald Trump.
Yeah, she is. She sucked.
That she was too unlikable. That she called Trump voters.
No, she really sucked. Like, a lot of people did not want to vote for her. Plus, I hate to say, pull the you're too young to remember, but she is, 7 years younger than me. I don't think that she understands that there was the legacy politics thing where people were sick of like Clinton's, Bush, and just anybody that had those two names. I have a feeling actually Trump will start running into that where people are be like, listen, we're over this. Let's try something new. Like, Americans are very, very much that way. But Trump is the one that's scary because he's now more of like an oligarch where it's kind of like he has a lot of people that are sycophantic towards him. And that's gross. Like, that was something that kind of was nice about the American electorate was a lot of people, even though they would like a politician, they would never blanket just go like, I am standing behind this people, unless they were just profoundly weird people that had I call it parental complexes, where it's like you need a daddy or a mommy just to constantly lead you to, a train of thought. And that's how they see these people.
Deplorables, that she didn't campaign enough in the swing states. And for years, I have thought how ridiculous a nation must be to insist it made perfect sense to elect a white supremacist.
I like her hair color. It reminds me of Goku Black.
Sexist, xenophobic, racist, stupid ass bigot.
Sorry, nerd reference. It was a DB's Dragon Ball Super reference.
Told us exactly who he was because the woman he ran against wasn't likable enough, that she didn't campaign hard enough. All the while, I have thought that if it's an uphill battle for anyone to beat a white supremacist, they are far more qualified than, for any reason, it is an indictment on the nation. But that's never what I've said.
I disagree with her there.
Because I have always chosen to try to be mindful about how I discuss U.S. elections whose results totally upend my life. And I knew, not just based on that.
Okay, but I don't want to be that way where it's like, well, then you're coming at this with a certain level of emotion that most people wouldn't. So
election or the general voting.
But I understand that. It's like you have a lot at stake.
Or the bigoted discourse that's been suffocating us all for 3 election cycles now. But by my lived experience as a black woman, that this deeply racist and sexist country that refused to elect a white woman would not elect a black woman. I knew that. And I voiced that the moment Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris became the nominee. But I allowed people to muscle me into believing America isn't who I've always known it to be and who it continues to show me it is. I listened to people tell me that I was being too cynical to believe she would have an impossible hill to climb.
I don't buy that because the polling would have reflected that.
To believe that white women would never vote for her no matter what they told you. That this country hates black women, that it hates immigrants, and that it hates Kamala Harris not for who she is, but what she is. But people wanted her to win. We wanted her to win. They wanted to believe she could win They wanted to feel optimistic, which required them to believe America was not America.
Well, yeah, but there was also like the corporatist aspect of things. There was the abandonment of like there was so much going on with the Harris campaign that, I mean, if you just want to get simple with it, it's the fact that she just kind of popped up and like she had what 4 months to actually like make her case. I mean,
So they convinced themselves.
I literally started my YouTube career with her first rally, and I think that was like the middle of August.
Kamala Harris could win if she did X, Y, Z. If she ran a particular kind of campaign. If she was more left. If she was less left. If she laughed less. If she talked more. The list goes on. And people were so convinced.
Yeah, that was media. That was the media. Like, make no mistake, that was the media. They were the ones like hyperfixated on that.
Let them sell me a dream I knew was a mirage.
Sorry.
I let people muscle me into forgetting the most important truth about racism and misogyny, which is that it doesn't care about truth. It does not care about qualifications. It does not care about fair. The truth is, there is nothing Kamala Harris could have done to win that election.
I disagree that this was all steeped in, I mean, a little bit of it was steeped in misogyny. I'm not going to say like, but what actually lost her the number of voters that she did, and what didn't pick her up the Republican votes from like what, say, the Lincoln Project thought they would, was specifically her pivoting to the right and her kind of abandoning like, you know, the leftist constituency.
I knew it when she became the nominee, and I'm more sure than ever before. Many leftists want to believe, and will continue to argue tooth and nail, that she did not win because she wasn't left enough, because she was too centrist, because of her
That's kind of what I was just saying.
stance on Gaza. But the evidence simply does not reflect this. First of all, maybe if only Kamala Harris lost, you could choose to ignore all the data that explicitly told us that Americans believed Kamala Harris and the Democrats were too liberal.
No, the main bits of data that are coming out is showing us that it was the economy. That was what everybody in exit polls, whether it was Latino men, black men, white women, they were all saying the same thing, was the price at the grocery store and the price of goods and services, the price of auto parts, these types of things. Like I'm speaking anecdotally for me, where I've noticed that, where like my last like sticker shock was getting some car work done. I was like, and I used to do work in an automotive shop, so like I had an idea of how much these things cost, even just like 2 to 3 years ago, and it was insane.
Which is something they...
So to sit there and ignore that, I think is also kind of playing into why Trump won, is because you're doing the thing, you're ignoring the actual plights of what the voters were saying, and it wasn't about her being a black woman, it wasn't even about her being too leftist, it was about the fact that it was a referendum on who was in power. Her. She's the vice president, Joe Biden. It was a referendum on the Democrats. That's why not just her, it wasn't just her losing. Because if people were really that misogynist, they would just be like, I'll vote for Trump, but I'm not going to abandon the Democratic Party completely. But that's not what happened. I hate to say it, a lot of like the Democrats just didn't come out to vote, whether it was for the Gaza thing or any of that kind of stuff. But to just blanket steep it in just being racist and misogynist, I feel like that's disingenuous, and that's creating a really weird argument like down the road, because you're doing the thing where it's like, oh, it's all based on identity politics, and like you're doing it where you're just ignoring the economic factors, which were what was like they were saying this is why they voted this way.
They likely believed not because of Kamala Harris's actual stances or policy agenda, but simply because she's a black woman. But it wasn't just Kamala Harris who lost.
I'm sorry.
It's not even just that the Democrats are projected to lose the Senate and the House.
Yeah, well, we'll see about the House, but yeah, doesn't look good. But if look at it this way, if the right has all three branches and they still don't manage to do anything, like theoretically 2026, that's going to change.
Legislation on the ballot failed all over the country. From Florida to California failed. The entire country moved to the far right. Some leftists will choose to believe that
not far right. No, they pivoted right. You could say that. I mean, it's easy to say now because Donald Trump got elected, but yeah, no, they voted for the far right, but it's not like acting like everybody just pivoted on a dime. Come on now.
Entire country moving to the far right. Shooting down progressive legislation and candidates nationwide and explicitly declaring that the Democratic candidate was too left is proof that the candidate lost because she didn't openly pander to the far left enough. Many of whom declared time and time again that they wouldn't vote for a Democrat under any circumstances because they were going to break the duopoly, get the Greens to 5%, teach the Democrats a lesson on Gaza, vote their
they all suck.
conscience, vote their heart, not vote at all because both parties are the same and fascism is already here. Some leftists will choose to believe this outcome is the result of Gaza and that this outcome proves that the Democrats would have won had they listened to the furthest left. But the data does not support this.
No, I mean, it's like 14% of the issue.
Did not win 5%.
It wasn't a
win
big
2%. Not in Michigan or anywhere else.
Yeah.
The exit polls indicated what many already knew, and it's that Americans care about domestic issues far more than they care about foreign policy or what happens abroad.
Shocker! Oh my gosh! It's like I was saying that. Oh, it's almost like people actually give a damn about what is, in their lives and the things that truly affect them. And usually that's the price of stuff. Weird that people would actually care about how much groceries cost in their country over the plight of a country that they're never going to go to. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. That's how they view this.
They voted on economy and their flatly incorrect belief that Trump would be better on the economy.
Yeah.
Despite economist after economist.
Yeah, but again, this was a referendum on the Democrats. To sit here and pretend that just because Joe Biden was making the right moves, he didn't make them in the right places, and he let the child tax credit lapse. That's on him. I hate to even bring that one up like it's like the single most one, but they could have ran on that stuff, but they decided not to.
Is assuring us all that Trump will destroy the economy and that he would suppress the marginalized groups they've grown sick of hearing from. Leftists will say that Democrats have no one to blame for the results of this election but themselves. But that implies that it's Democrats who lost something tonight. But it's all of us who lost. We will lose our rights. And many of us will lose our lives. You are not dunking on the Dems. You are dunking on us. The joke is on us.
I mean, again, that's assuming that anybody who actually voted for Trump is watching this. I always feel like this is my problem where it's like, no, you're technically speaking to us. Like, I agree with you on these things, but then I feel like you're literally saying you're the problem.
America is not who many leftists want to believe it is. The truth is that this country is deeply, deeply racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, fundamentally hateful, and down.
Yeah, that's why we're always fighting against it.
Right, uneducated. No one will gain anything from a Trump presidency, but the loss.
Yeah, that's really I'm sorry. That kind of shit right there, say that to somebody's face and they're just going to be like, and I'm supposed to listen to you. Why?
Will be crippling. Importantly, although I think many leftists are wrong in what they'll choose to take from the results of this election, I want to be explicitly and abundantly clear that leftists, far left or otherwise, are not to blame for the results of this election. Shoots. Not even the Electoral College is to blame, because most voters did vote for Trump.
Oh.
But you know who didn't?
Okay, thank you.
Black people. If there was one solid...
Oh, come on. No. They voted 10% more than the last election for Trump. It was like 10% of the black electorate voted for Trump the first time. 20% did this time. So I know it's small, but you can't just blanket say that, that 20% wasn't to blame. What? Because they were just fooled. They can't think for themselves. What? Come on, that's fucking racist right there.
Military group in this country who is not to blame for the dark times that are soon to come upon us, it's black people who voted overwhelmingly for the Democrats and to save this democracy.
Okay, fine, the 80%, sure, but to blanket say that black people are not to blame, like this is a dumb argument. Like, no, a small contingent is to blame, just like there's a small contingent of Latinos, or well, not a small, I think it was like 57%.
And despite how many thinly veiled racist attacks black people had to endure all election season, that we were only voting for Kamala because she's black, all ranging from Republicans to white leftists and even some non-white people, like the Green Party's both transphobic and anti-abortion vice presidential pick, Butch Ware.
Man, her edits are weird and she keeps like...
The truth
sorry,
is
man.
that black people
pay
always
attention to
vote
the weird
overwhelmingly
shit,
Democrat, even when the candidates have been white as they usually are, because the alternative is a white supremacist party openly and aggressively committed to our subjugation.
But this is a weird argument to make when she won like 47% of the electorate. Like that, if they were truly as racist as you are saying, then she wouldn't have even gotten that. Like, that's what's kind of fucking with me here.
So do not look to black people to blame for what's to come.
Again, no, I'm going to blame everybody equally. Again, not based on race. Weird. Like
white women and Latino voters.
Why is this okay? Why? Why is this okay? I know, hot take coming from a white dude.
Who I wish I could say I was surprised by, but I am not, because I know what this country is. Kamala Harris.
You know what? Seriously, then why are you fighting so hard to live here? This, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here and make the right wing argument. Again, white guy, and it's so easy for that, like for any of the people in her community to turn around on me and just be like, man, look, he's doing the thing. It's just like, well, do you understand? This is why you get the pushback that you do. Like, because these arguments, they, number one, kind of come off combative, like for what reason, I don't know. Because she's literally like, you're starting to do the thing where you're like, they're all racist. They're all racists. But you know who's not? The 10% or the 20% of black people that voted. Don't blame them at all.
This campaign.
What?
People who invested their efforts in protesting against her.
No, we all deserve. No. Race, religion, creed, don't care. If you voted for Trump, you deserve the pushback if these things start happening. Okay, like I'm still going to give it that. Like we got months before it does, but once it does, that's when you start doing these things. But sitting there going, like rubbing people's faces in a spot that it's like you're expecting there to be shit in. And it's like, there will be shit here soon. Look, it's like, that's not going to work.
Because their contempt is reserved for liberals, not fascists, told us that they were protesting Kamala Harris and making demands of Kamala Harris while speaking.
Just as a side, my allergy meds are like totally giving me like water mouth. I don't know why.
Nothing of Donald Trump, asking nothing of Donald Trump, and downplaying every threat made by Donald Trump because they said that they knew they could not get anywhere with Donald Trump. And they were correct.
That's such an easy cop-out. That's the reason that they were saying that, like, oh, we're not going to even go protest. It's like, yeah, but if he's in power, then what are you even doing? You know, the whole, like, well, we're gonna push Kamala into making the right moves. Like, what?
We will not get anywhere with
asking that a lot.
So save your demands, because he will not hear them. Hold off on your protests, because you will likely be brutalized and criminalized, as Donald Trump has promised police violence. Make peace with the rights that you've already lost to Trump's Supreme Court.
That's it. That's defeatist.
Kiss the remainders goodbye, because any hope at saving the Supreme Court or any of your rights is done. At least
you know what? Just an aside, she turned off the comments to this, and I'm starting to see why. You know, I have a feeling that she's going to look back on this and kind of be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I made this video too soon. I was coming at it from a weird place.
For your lifetime. Whatever you thought the Democrats didn't do enough of, prepare to lose even that much. I don't have to wonder about the nightmare to come, because Donald Trump, the Republicans, and the Christian Heritage Foundation told us exactly what they have planned and how they're going to do it. And America overwhelmingly declared that it's what they want. And
no, they weren't listening. The thing is, that wasn't really being widely reported on. That's not the shit that they heard. You have to, like, if you're going to call America stupid, then you got to give them credit for being stupid. Then you got to just be like, no, they kept hearing money go down, taxes go down, or, you know, prices go down. Like, that's all they kept hearing.
Who am I to lecture America about what's best for them? I moved through so many emotions tonight.
She literally asked the question, though. Like, I hate the... What?
From heartbreaking disbelief.
At least she sees it, I guess.
And finally, I have tried to land on apathy and exhaustion. I have expended all my energy trying to...
I appreciate her, like, her takes on this, and I also appreciate her criticisms, but there is part of this that is kind of like, to sound like an ignorant American, she can go back to the Bahamas and, like, not be part of this, but, like... if it's so bad, I don't know. Like, I wish I had this option, like, to just be like, yeah, you know what? America sucks right now.
To convince Americans that you should take seriously a man threatening to upend your democracy and civil rights, especially when that same man already served as president and did things like incite a fucking insurrection when he lost. I have no energy to keep trying to convince Americans that their enemy is not the most oppressed, marginalized group in their society, that hurting immigrants will not bring you money, power, or resources of any kind, that immigrants are not the reason you don't have those things.
Yeah, actually, that's what a lot of us are doing now. We're like, just white leftists now are just being like, hey, stop with the immigrant crap. Like, it's just, I'm just asking people blanket, like, hey, when's the last time a immigrant, like, screwed you over? Like, and please, like, in depth, because I would like to know, like, why you are so anti-immigrant. If you're like, How does this affect you again?
I'm tired of trying to explain to leftist accelerationists that you are not going to convince the Democrats to be more left-wing by putting the far-right nut jobs in office. That you are not going to spite the Democratic Party or the powers that be by not electing
agree with
them.
that.
That you are not going to show them shit. You're not holding them accountable.
No.
You are strapping the country in the most marginal
No, but that doesn't stop me from also kind of going like, I hope you do learn your lesson.
people in it to the fucking rails. I am tired trying to explain to people that the world they dream of cannot be accomplished with a single phone call, no matter what people who do nothing but run for president every 4 years tells you. I am tired of
There's a lot of people that think that, like, call your senator, you'll change this.
trying to explain anything to Americans who so desperately wanted to be able to critique Kamala Harris in a vacuum that an election is about choice. It is about choosing someone in relation to the other candidates. Couldn't possibly make sense to make these indictments of Kamala Harris in a vacuum. Meanwhile, Trump is the alternative. You know what's been on my mind all election season?
Maybe that's a referendum on the fact that they both weren't great candidates.
Repeatedly, I hear Americans complain that every election they say this is the most important election, that democracy is in danger. Every time I hear this complaint, it leaves me
To be fair, they were saying that all the way back in 2000.
at a loss as I just start firing questions at myself. Is something less true because you hear it often? What does it cost you to go vote? Why are people behaving as though by being asked to vote? The bare minimum, they are being asked to build the ark and load the animals by their lonesome by
Actually, no, I can answer that part. It's because it's like the boy who cried wolf thing. You hear so much about these boogeymen that aren't there. And then once the boogeyman finally shows up, you're just like, oh, well.
end of business day. Is it absurd that
But it's because you were just like, the boogeyman's right there and they were never there.
democracy and your personal freedoms would be under threat in a nation where white supremacists never wanted you to have those freedoms in the first place? Is it absurd that you would be told your vote is important and that it's necessary you exercise it in a nation where you had to fight for the right in the first place because the white supremacists in charge didn't want you to have it?
She really is just calling everybody white supremacist at that point. Okay, I mean,
I don't even understand the need for this exacerbation of the concept of being told at election time, the time where power is up for grabs, that it will yet again be important to prevent your enemies from gaining power. Someone promised that because it was important to vote in one election, that it could not or would not be important to vote in the next one? Yes, you keep being told that this is the most important election and that democracy is under threat, because it is. How many rights do we have to lose before?
yeah, but dude, hyperbole is not a thing that's exclusive to one side in this especially this election. Like, dude, both sides were going nuts with the whole communists, Nazis, fascists, yeah! And then Piers Morgan only focused on, well, you called him a Nazi, you called him Hitler, even though nobody called him Hitler.
Before we get it through our thick skulls that our rights are always in danger, that we will have to keep showing up and fighting for our rights. And not just by voting. That's the least of it if you can vote. Republicans spend 50 years actively working to overturn Roe, and they always show up to vote because they get that it's never just the one and done. You have to fight to get rights, and you have to fight to maintain them. Your ancestors did not fight for your right to vote in one election. No one told you only one election mattered. It's a right you keep exercising. And honestly, you should want to. No one should have to fight you to use what power you do have.
No, but notice how, like, this is why I keep calling it a psyop. Like, I hate to say it, the Arab one, I feel like it was a psyop because just how targeted it was and just where it was coming from, like, you know, TikTok and X. It's kind of like, this is sus.
I do not know why people keep acting like because the last election they were told was the most important, that the next one can't be. Have you ever had problems?
I think that this is an oversimplification of that.
And have those problems ever gotten worse over time? Exactly. Have you ever worked out and dieted so that you could lose weight? And when you lost that weight, how did you maintain it?
Good
By
analogy.
continuing to work out and
No,
eat
it's good.
right.
Okay.
But like I said, I have gone through all the emotions.
Good analogy.
Disbelief, rage, and finally apathy. Or at least I am trying to feel apathetic.
Well, I mean, if we're in grief, you got two more coming.
Pain is overwhelming. I've been in America since I was 14 years old, and I am now 31 years old. That is 16 years and 5 elections that I've had no say in.
16 years, that's it? I mean, sorry, I'm not trying to deny, like, that's a while, but, man, 16 years ago, like, oh, man, I'm old.
All have impacted me greatly. But 2016 upended my life. 2016 brought forth one of the worst times in my life as an immigrant in this country. But as I sit here in 2024, coming to terms with what's in store for me again and how I avoid it, I know that America not only does not give a fuck.
Yeah, I think she got deported.
But it's the outcome they wanted. So there's no need for me to keep bearing my soul or trying to plead with this nation. I am going to save my breath.
Yeah, well, not deported, but her work visa was up and she had to go back and reapply for a work visa.
As I should have all election season. And as I will when Donald Trump takes hold of this country and people start to experience the fascism they insisted was already here. I am no longer in a position to advocate for Americans who advocate against immigrants like me.
Well,
This is what the majority
But it's kind of hard to do when you're like almost blanket making a blanket statement about how people don't support your rights and immigrants' rights, and you're also saying like, well, yeah, part of this is the
of
Democratic
Americans
Party.
wanted, and my heart is with those of us who will not survive it.
I mean, that's a good video, but I do feel like she like the reason that she has the comments turned off. I have a feeling it's because she's like, yeah, this might not be the most popular take. I don't know. I also, if I'm misconstruing something, please let me know. Because honestly, I think she's coming at this from a good place, but also we're 2 days out from it, so I kind of get it. But that was absurd when she was just like, "Don't just blanket, don't blame black people, but blame the rest of them." Like it's like what? Like no, I'm sorry, we're all to blame here. You can't you can't just like take that 20% out that voted for Trump just because they're black and then just be like, don't blame them. Like what? Sorry, unless I misconstrued that completely, and then I'm like, oh, I'm the asshole. Okay, cool. But anyway, I thought that that was good, and I appreciate her. I appreciate her takes on this stuff, especially. I mean, a lot of people do denigrate her stuff like that, like her takes on these kinds of things because she's an immigrant, and I think that that's completely unfair. Also, she does have like a unique perspective on this stuff, but there is also the like whole I do feel like it's easier for her to criticize some of these things, and like with I'm not sure if it's a back in the head idea where it's like, well, I could leave. Like, yeah, I wish I had that, because it's like, yes, I'm ashamed of my country, but I also do have hope that we can, work to make things better. And also, I hang out with people who are not all politically like me, so I know the plights of what they actually care about. And most people, especially the ones who aren't political, like most of my friends who are, I would consider them almost apolitical, but they did vote, was just economy. And they were like, yeah, things are just too damn expensive. And I think, the Democrats need to learn a lesson. And that's how they view it. I know it's dumb. I can't even say I necessarily agree with it. I don't agree with it. I think it's stupid, but you just got to take it for what it is and move on from there and try and understand, that's kind of the whole thing with politics. You got to understand where other people are coming from. But anyway, I do appreciate like this whole video, and yeah, hope she makes more. But also, I hope that everybody is kind of calm me down a little bit with this, like the post-election, blues, and just don't get too angry and invested in pointing the fingers just yet. And there was also like this large contingent that are just like, oh, freak out, like the country is going to end the day after the election, kind of thing. And I'm just like, can we just, I don't know. But I'm also hopeful that there's enough good faith people that may have voted for him that will vote for the other side, come the next election cycle if things aren't going well. Because yeah, I don't think that they're all cultists. Anyway, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you guys checking out my content. If you guys enjoy this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I have super thanks and memberships available if you guys want to have access to my members only content and members only streams. It's going to be a long 4 years, so consider signing up and supporting me financially, because that would just make you even that much more awesome. And gotta support the left, especially now. All right. But yeah, I do sincerely appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you in the next one.